T-Wolves beat the Rockets 113-106 on the same night. OKC drops one to Philly. I got our expert, Jack Borman. He's going to help us break it all down. It's all coming up next on the Locked On Wolves POSTCAST.
You are Locked On Wolves POSTCAST, part of Locked On Minnesota on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up? What's up? Back in the lab, back at it. Another T-Wolves POSTCAST episode right here on the Locked On Sports Minnesota Network. You got myself, Luke Inman, at Luke_Spinman. That's the man right there, Jack Borman. He's on X, at JR Borman 13. And Jack, before we jump into all the action tonight, quick reminder, tonight's episode brought to you by Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA. Use code all lowercase LockedOnNBA for first deposit match up to $100. All right, man, Wolves coming off that. It was a gut punch versus the Bulls a couple nights ago. They were hungry to get back at it tonight. The first night, by the way, of a back-to-back versus this red-hot Rockets team. They came in winning 11 of their past 12. So you knew the Wolves were going to have to bring their A game, and really, that's about the last thing they came out the gate with. 16 points in the first quarter. That was the lowest scoring opening quarter of the season. But then they flipped a switch. Never really looked back. 23-4 run the final 5 minutes heading into halftime. A 38-point explosion in the second quarter. 14 assists. Most assists they've had in a quarter all season long. They were cooking with gas. Target Center was absolutely rocking tonight. That looked like a lot of fun if you were there in person. We can get into all the individual stuff here in a second, but before we do that, like we always do, kick us off here, Jack. Wolves get back on track. They cool down this red-hot Rockets team, 113-106. Biggest takeaways, your A topics, just top of your head.
Yeah, for me, the first one is that it's another incident of this Wolves starting five struggling to score against a team that plays primarily a switching concept defensively. That's what the Rockets have been doing for the last month without Alperen Şengün, who is out for the rest of the season with a really, really bad ankle sprain. Yeah, like you said, the first quarter, the starting unit especially just came out, really could not find a rhythm. It was just an absolute clank fest in the first 6 minutes or so. The Wolves had an offensive rating of about 47 in the first 6 minutes, which is even double that would be a terrible offensive rating. So, yeah, so that was a really big problem for the Wolves. And you could just tell right out the gates that it was not a game that Ant had any legs in again. And we'll get to that a little bit later, but yeah, it just put a lot of pressure on everyone else to have to kind of, find a rhythm. And I think that the starting unit as it's constructed right now is just, if one of Anthony Edwards or Naz Reid struggles to score out of the gate, it just puts a lot of pressure on everyone else. And that's what we saw, right? Again, in the third quarter, they only had 9 points in the first 6 minutes with that starting lineup, which is just not going to get it done. And then again, in closing time, you couldn't find a rhythm. The Timberwolves only scored 2 points from the 6:30 mark right after Mike Conley hit that three to go up 15 to when Naz Reid hit that banger three to keep the Rockets at bay with 2 minutes and 45 seconds left. You just can't go. I don't care. Even if you're up 15, it's really hard to go 4 minutes in the fourth quarter without scoring and get the game to the finish line. And thankfully they were able to. But again, throughout this game, turnovers were a huge problem, again, which is a byproduct of the switching defense that they struggled to play against. I mean, they had 18 turnovers. Houston converted those into 27 points, and Houston won 22-9 in transition. And they've been a team that's been phenomenal in getting out and running since Şengün went down. They're fifth in the league in fast break points since that injury about a month ago. And then, like you said, that second quarter was really kind of a glimmer of hope. And we saw that again at the start of the fourth quarter, right? So once the starting unit wasn't together, the team really started to turn it on and play well. And in that second quarter, I mean, the first group just came out like a, bolt of lightning. And then they ended up scoring 38 points with only 3 free throws made, which is incredibly impressive. And they shot 15 of 19 from the floor. That's essentially 79%. That's the highest field goal percentage they've had in a quarter.
Chicago couldn't miss the other night. They pulled Chicago.
Yeah.
Rubbed off on them.
Yeah. So that was the highest free throw percentage they had in a quarter all season. And like you said, 14 assists is the most that they had in a quarter all season. And it's, funny because they had 15 in the other 3 quarters combined. So they really packed everything in. And then in that second quarter, Jordan McLaughlin and Kyle Anderson were incredible. They had 12 points and 11 assists and only 1 turnover between the two of them. So 11 assists, 1 turnover between the two of them in that quarter. And then Slow-Mo also had 3 rebounds and 3 stocks in the quarter. And it was really just part of a great bench game, right? 33 points, 14 of 21 shooting, 5 of 8 from beyond the arc. They had, as a bench, collectively 17 assists and just 3 turnovers. And we talked about, Kyle Anderson then being incredibly important in that third quarter, had the last 4 points of the third quarter to kind of help extend the lead a little bit, get a little bit more breathing room. I think they're up 9 at the end of the third quarter, something like that. A lot of it was due to Slow-Mo. And then he hits the 3, has the crazy Euro step in the quarter.
That was so silky. Target center, the roof almost came off, man.
Yeah, the way that they've really turned and appreciated him after having a slow first 45, 50 games of the year has been awesome. He had 13 points on 6 of 8 field goals, 9 assists. I believe, what do you have? 1 turnover the whole game for Slow-Mo, 6 rebounds, 4 stocks. And then Jordan McLaughlin again, man, made 3 of his 4 threes, had 7 assists, 1 turnover, was a team high plus 17 tonight. Those 2 guys were tremendous. And the way that those 2 guys sparked runs at the start of the second quarter and the start of the fourth quarter ultimately ended up being the difference in this game. And the way that Chris Finch has found lineups that work and really leaning heavily on that Jordan McLaughlin, Mike Conley, Kyle Anderson trio as a playmaking unit has been awesome. And Mike, it was a good thing Mike Conley had those other 2 guys out on the floor tonight, because Mike Conley in this game very uncharacteristically had 4 turnovers, which I'm sure is the most that he's had in a game all season. So just a really great game from the Timberwolves bench to help out on a night that Anthony Edwards didn't really have it, but thankfully Naz Reid did. Right, 25 points. 10 of 17 shooting was a big bounce back for him after really struggling in that game against Chicago.
Yeah, and again, we'll touch on Ant in segment 2, but you're right. I mean, the A topic, Slow-Mo, J-Mac, Naz Reid, you're already missing Cat. When Ant's having an off game, just doesn't look in rhythm. Maybe it's the finger. Again, we'll touch on it here in a second. Maybe it's just the legs, exhaustion. Who knows what it is? But to have these bench guys come up and just ball out the way they did, to kind of pick them up and say, bro, we got you. It's okay. No big deal. We can carry this team too on a night-to-night basis when needed. That definitely is the A topic. So glad you called that out for sure. Bigger picture, it's like, okay, here's coming in. It's like, okay, you lose to the Bulls Sunday. That was a gut punch, right? They also clinch a playoff spot on their night off yesterday. You mentioned it. OKC loses tonight. Wolves beat Houston, obviously. Denver, I think they're in the third quarter right now, as you mentioned, losing to the Spurs as we speak. Just a roller coaster, though. I mean, for Wolves fans, these last 72 hours or so, they keep popping back in and out of that 1 seed. Bigger picture here, Jack. This team is going to the playoffs for the 3rd consecutive year. First time that's happened in franchise history, I believe. I don't want to veer off too far from tonight and what happened, but can you try to put that into words a little bit? Like, how special is this season, Ben? What does this team mean for this entire state of Minnesota right now? For the fans, really, that have watched them struggle far more years than not. Like, how great is that? How much fun are we having right now? Whether they get the 1 seed or not, we're having fun. It almost feels like we're playing with house money a little bit sometimes, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does. I think they made the playoffs like 8 years in a row when KG was around, but
okay. Yep.
Yeah, but first time they've made the playoffs.
KG era, 04, 05. You're right. Yeah.
Yep. And so, yeah, I mean, it's just been really fun. And I think when you have a historically great defense like the Timberwolves do, I think this fan base has done a really great job of embracing that and really cheering for the Timberwolves defense, especially on nights where their offense is really struggling, right? And I think that's been super evident, especially since the All-Star break, when this team has struggled and needed to rely on its defense a little bit more without Karl-Anthony Towns for the most part. And the way that this team just finds ways to win and sticks together and doesn't get blown out. I think their biggest loss since and really like the last month, 6 weeks or so, is like 11 points. And the fact that they're just competitive in every single game, I think is super admirable and something that this fan base is really appreciated. And considering how many non-competitive seasons this team has had, you've just got to really appreciate and be grateful that you have a Timberwolves team that kind of has the mentality that the Wolves team from 2 years ago had, where they just play insanely hard in every single game. And that was just a non-negotiable that you never really had to worry about, mixed with now the talent and the depth that they have to be able to play, especially defensively, so many different ways in a way that they were not able to do 2 years ago, I think is a really fun combination. And I just think it's really fun for fans to watch a team that's elite defensively, because when you have all these misses stack up against each other and the Timberwolves can get out and run a little bit, the energy in the building just kind of keeps, inching up and climbing higher and higher with each successive stop that you get. And that's how you get more of these, quick 7-0, 9-0, 10-0, 14-2 runs, where all of a sudden you blow the game open and you have a home run hitter and a huge energy creator in Anthony Edwards, another one in Naz Reid. They can just make all these plays. And when all that kind of comes together, like we saw at the end of the first half in that 23-4 run to close the half, it's just so fun to be a part of in that building, and to just watch on TV with Michael Grady and Jim Peterson. I mean, at the end of that game, when Ant has that dunk, you got Jim Pete standing up and high-fiving all the fans in the suite behind where
going bananas
on the perch where they are. And
yeah.
I just love the way that this team and this fan base is enjoying every single night that they have together, because we've seen this team kind of fizzle out in the playoffs. I mean, even in those KG years, right? They only made it past the first round one time in those eight appearances, and they went to the Western Conference Finals. I mean, and then you look at the last 2 years, right? The Wolves have fizzled out in the first round. I mean, they've been to the playoffs, what is it, 11 times in franchise history, and they've only made it out of the first round one time. So again, that's kind of where fans are hung up on, I think, in that they're enjoying everything they have now, because they know that history, at least with this franchise, tells us it's going to be tough to get out of the first round. But again, this team has been doing things that no other team in franchise history has done all season long. And I think it's going to be poetic justice when this team not only wins a playoff series, but hopefully can make it back to the Western Conference Finals for the first time in 21 years or 20 years.
Jim Pete had his Patrick Beverly moment, I feel like, after that game. He would have taken his jersey off if he could have after that game. That's how amped he was. 60 seconds. We got to jump to segment 2, but I want to talk about this 60 seconds. Is this one of those games that makes you sit back and really appreciate Rudy Gobert again? I know we kind of gloss over it once in a while. He almost lulls you to sleep when it's game after game like this, but that ultra consistency the guy gives you on both, and just this ultimate, like, well-rounded veteran leader and the team guy, right?
Yeah, no question about it. I think, especially in a night where Ant's struggling, we'll get to Ant in the second segment, but yeah, I mean, he just turned so many guys away at the rim, and they only the Rockets only took, I think, 34 shots, 34 of their 92 shots in the paint, which is an excellent number, and for them to again shoot what they shoot here from, I mean, they only got 23 shots at the rim, and so the way Rudy was able to help deter guys at the rim was incredible. They forced a ton of jumpers, like I said, and in Houston, 13 of 42, 31% on above the break threes, which is an incredible number. And it's a testament to guys like Rudy stepping up on guys like Jabari Smith Jr., Jaden McDaniels playing great defense for the most part on the perimeter on Jalen Green, and the Timberwolves just forcing tough shots, right? I think over the course of time, this Timberwolves defense just really wears on you, and they play the percentages. They force teams to take low percentage shots over the course of a game, and it really shows in the final box score numbers. And so it's been really fun to watch. And tonight was another example where just over time, the Timberwolves defense just feels inevitable, right?
Yeah, apparently I was frozen there for a little bit. Sorry, guys, you caught me napping. Hopefully my connection's back and fine. That's live TV for you there, folks. Plenty more deep dive to get into, including, again, Ant's play as of late. That's all coming up right after this. Quick reminder, tonight's episode brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, patient. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. And eBay Motors, they got everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to the ultimate peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights. eBay Motors, they got it all. And whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. Check this out. 122 million parts for your number one ride or die. You'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay's Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. All right. Elephant in the room. We've already kind of touched on it, teased it a little bit. Anthony Edwards. He was on, it wasn't that long ago, Jack. He was on an absolute heater there for about 5-6 weeks. And in no way am I about to say that he's playing bad or like holding this team back, obviously, in any way. So you can't argue, though, here, Jack. There's been a little bit of dip, right? He's kind of came back down to earth, especially with the scoring lately. He was averaging second most points in the league in the NBA behind only Luka with like 33 points per game. Now in his last 6 games, he scored, let me pull this up, 16 versus Cleveland, 23 versus Golden State, 9 versus Detroit, 25 versus Denver, 23 versus Chicago. And tonight, too, I think you touched on this, he didn't score his first field goal until 6 minutes left in the third quarter. So I don't know. What is it? Like last night, everything was coming up short. You could tell the legs were just shot. He's exhausted. That makes sense. Guy gives 110% every single second he's out there, especially since Cat went down. He's really tried to, you can just see it, shoulder the load, put this team on the back. Lately, it feels like teams are kind of clogging the paint a little bit more. That's kind of jumped out to me. In turn, if the 3 ball's not dropping, it kind of tends to not look like the same guy we got used to when he was on that absolute heater. So I know you can explain a lot better than I can. What are you seeing out there? And I guess how concerning is it, like on a scale of 1 to 10?
It's like a 2 for me in terms of the concern.
No big deal.
Yeah. I just think it's fatigue, frankly. He's had to carry such a heavy load since Karl Anthony Towns went out and has played all these games. Then you have to think about everything that he did when Naz Reid was out and Rudy Gobert was out. And it was just so much more on him to get everything done. That's what it is. I mean, he's missed 22 3-pointers in a row right now. And almost all of those misses have been short. And it's just because he's tired. And it's been no secret since Ant came into the league that he hasn't been the most in shape guy. And this season, part of the reason why he's been so good for 95% of the season is because he's been really in shape. And I think unless your name is Luka Doncic, I just don't think there's any guy in the league that's capable of carrying a team in the manner in which Ant has for really the last month since Karl went down. Yeah, because it just takes so much out of you. And Luka is so unique and so rare because he plays at the tempo of someone like Kyle Anderson, right? Where he's not using his explosiveness to really create so many problems for the defense like Ant has to. And that just adds up, right? And then, again, you look at the turnovers too, right? Ant's had 9 turnovers in the last 2 games. And I think that's really when the fatigue has started to set in. I think Ant took 10 jumpers in this game. I don't think he made a single one of them. All 5 of his scores were right there in the paint. He did make 11 free throws. He did a much better job in the second half of really putting his head down and getting to the rim and kind of putting pressure on the defense in that way, collapsing the defense, kicking the ball out a little bit. But, yeah, I just think, again, it's games where Rudy Gobert shines and that he raises the floor of this team so significantly, especially on nights where Ant doesn't have it, where he can kind of hold the defense down and kind of hold serve, I guess, while the other guys are getting ready and finding a rhythm and are able to kind of carry the offense for stretches. But yeah, for Ant, it's just going to be how much can other guys pick it up while Ant's kind of recouping on the fly, if you will. And they got to turn around tomorrow night and play Toronto. And Toronto has lost 14 games in a row. And I know that they haven't had RJ Barrett for a while. They haven't had Emmanuel Quickly for a while. But I would if I were the Timberwolves, I would rest Anthony Edwards tomorrow night. I don't think it's you don't respect the opponent. I don't think it's anything other than I genuinely think that resting him tomorrow is in his best interest when you consider they have to go play Phoenix and Los Angeles, and then they play against Washington at home, and then you got to go play in Denver on the second night of a back-to-back. If you're going to try to buy a game for him to sit, tomorrow would make sense so that he's really healthy and ready to go for those really big 3 games in the Western Conference, especially when you consider how close this seeding is. I think this team really wants to be able to grab the number 1 seed, and there's just not a whole lot of other opportunities for him to catch a break. And so you'd see maybe if he can get it tomorrow night. You think about some of these other guys, like Nikhil only played 19 minutes tonight. Jaden only played 28. Jordan McLaughlin only played 18. Monte Morris only played 10 minutes. So you can get some more of these guys some run tomorrow night if you were going to try to buy a game for Ant. But it's just fatigue for me. And I think, again, if the Wolves were to trade Karl Anthony Towns this summer, obviously they would get some productive players as part of that package coming back for Cat that would play. But if they aren't able to really be secondary scorers in the way that the Wolves would need them to be, that it's just a kind of a glimpse of, what we might see from Ant if he has to take on more of that Luka role, is that you could just see a lot more fatigue set in. And so I think that's something that people should keep in the back of their minds as they consider what might happen this summer, just because Ant's only played, this is his 12th game without Karl Anthony Towns, I believe, and he's already just completely shot and out of gas. So we'll see what happens, but certainly something to monitor the last 7 games here.
Yeah, well said there. Good breakdown, and a lot of people agree with you on the stream. A night off definitely should be in the cards. All right, don't go anywhere. We're going to preview this next Wolves game versus the Raptors tomorrow night, plus Naz Reid's chances at the 6th Man of the Year award. That's all coming up right after this. Quick reminder, tonight's episode brought to us by Amazon Fire TV. That's the #1 streaming platform around. Fire TV, it's your one-stop shop destination for everything sports. Live games to highlights to in-depth analysis. With Amazon Fire TV, they offer amazing viewing experiences with smart TVs, as well as the Fire TV stick that you can plug into your existing TV. That gives you access to millions of movies and TV episodes, not to mention free and live cable TV as well. Whether it's opening weekend for the 2024 MLB season, you got the PGA Masters, that's right around the corner, NFL Draft at the end of the month, or March Madness Tournament. Trust me when I say you're going to want to have a Fire TV at your fingertips on every device possible. Plus, Fire TV now includes all of our daily content from every Locked On channel and a vast majority of the pro leagues and college conferences as well. You got to check out Fire TV channels on Fire TV and your Alexa devices. Fire TV channels, it's the latest and greatest way to tap into all your watching needs, so don't miss out. To learn more, visit Amazon.com/LockedOnFireTV. That's Amazon.com/LockedOnFireTV. All right, quick little preview tomorrow night. Wolves on this back-to-back. Raptors coming into town. It's their last of 3 straight home games before they head to Phoenix and then LA Friday and Sunday night. So I guess when you look at these, next 3 games, what's the top 2 or 3 things you think about first? Whether, it's an opposing player who's hot, maybe a matchup that you think is worth noting, whatever it may be.
Yeah, for sure. It's those 2 games on the West Coast, right? I am not really concerned about the game tomorrow. The Raptors have been an abysmal offense for really the better part of 2 months, ever since they made those 2 trades to send away Pascal Siakam and OG Anunoby. They've been absolutely terrible offensively. However, they are a team that can really force turnovers and get out and run in transition. So I think the more that the Wolves can take better care of the ball, it might have been good tonight that they turned the ball over a ton and still were able to win, so that they can really focus on that tomorrow, because the Raptors are going to want to turn you over and run. So, that's a game that I'm not really all that concerned about, especially with it being at home. And then that game against Phoenix, it's just going to be about how well can you defend isolation defenders, right? Mm-hmm. And they've got 3 of the best isolation scorers of all time, and Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and Bradley Beal. I think those games will be fun because we haven't really played Phoenix in 3 or 4 months. So for the Timberwolves to get a good look at them, both teams right before the playoffs. It's a potential matchup that you could see if the Timberwolves are the 2 seed, Suns are the 7 seed, maybe a 3-6 if Phoenix turns it on here towards the end of the season. So that would be a really good test. I think the Timberwolves bench is going to have to be really, really good in that one, because the Suns bench has been pretty terrible for the better part of the last 6 or 8 weeks or so. And then with LA, right, you just got to hope that you can limit Anthony Davis. He absolutely destroyed the Timberwolves in their last matchup. I understand that, the Wolves didn't have Rudy Gobert in that game, but AD went absolutely crazy. I think he had like 25 and 25 in that game, if I remember correctly. So
wild. It
all starts with defending him. And then, if you can force LeBron into, being pretty passive as a scorer, I think that's worked out pretty well for the Timberwolves. And so, we'll see. You'd certainly expect LeBron to play now, with them needing to win every single game in terms of trying to get out of that play-in tournament potentially, or at least get to the 7 spot where they can host a play-in game. So I think Wolves fans are crossing their fingers that the Lakers will be the 7 seed if the Wolves end up being the 1 seed. So just some really good quality opponents in those 2 big West Coast games. So I think those are the headliners, and I think those 2 games ultimately could determine whether or not the Wolves are the 1 seed or not. Because if they steal both of those games, then you've got a pretty favorable schedule outside of the one Denver game at Denver on the second night of a back-to-back going into the playoffs. So, if they lose one or both of those games, you'd start to worry about their chances for the 1 seed. But so two huge games should be fun.
No nights off, especially down at crunch time. 7 games left here? I wanted to bring this up because last week when I brought it up, Naz Reid was like 10-1, I want to say, to win that 6th man of the year. I mean, you remember Monk was running away with it. Heavy favorite, right? Fast forward to now, though, Monk gets hurt, opens the door for Naz. So now he's got 7 more games to stay hot, potentially steal this thing right at the end. Obviously, you never want to see anyone get hurt. I think everyone knows Monk's kind of been the guy all season long for this award. But having said that, what's your assessment of this 6th man of the year award and Naz Reid's chances here right at the end?
Yeah, I'm just looking through our text thread here of when you sent me this text.
Don't do that.
You sent me this text last Wednesday, 10:05 a.m. Any chance Naz can beat out Monk for 6 man? I go, I highly doubt it. So, and here we are 6 days later talking about it. Just because Monk gets hurt, he's probably going to miss the rest of the season unless the Kings are able to make it to the second round of the playoffs. So
I should have put a buck on that, man. You talked me out of it.
Yeah, let's see what the odds were at that point. The odds were Monk minus 1,000 and Naz Reid was plus 850. So, I just want to get into this super quick in that Naz Reid is a really unique 6 man of the year candidate, and in my opinion, really kind of embodies the spirit of the award, right? In that Naz has been an elite spark plug off the bench for the first 60 games. The guy has missed 1 game all season. One game.
Crazy.
And he was great in his original role for the first 3 quarters of the season, and then has been asked to completely change his role, jump in the starting lineup, totally scale up his scoring production without Karl Anthony Towns, and he's maintained his efficiency and has even gotten better with his efficiency since Karl has left the lineup, and he's been asked to do way more. And that's just something that I think cannot go unnoticed when people are having these conversations. Like, yes, I understand that Malik Monk got hurt, but the fact that Naz has done all this for directly filling the shoes, 1-for-1 swap in the starting lineup of an all-star caliber player who's an all-star this season, while helping this team stay afloat, stay in the race for the 1 seed, where I think everyone kind of assumed that the Wolves would fade away and end up in this 3 spot. But intangibles like that have to matter. It cannot just be about the first 65 games this season and the narrative being, oh, well, Monk's got it wrapped up. The last 17 games don't matter. Like, you've got to focus on that stuff. And it's super unfortunate that Monk got hurt because he's been super fun. He was insane. Yeah. Watching him here at Target Center when he went off for like 38 points was incredible to watch. But yeah, for Naz to be able to do that, I do really think that, when you're the 6th man, you're the next guy up. So if anyone in the starting lineup gets hurt, like, your responsibilities scale up. And Naz has certainly followed through with that. And that, I think, has to be a bullet point when you're talking about who wins.
Yeah, well said. Great breakdown there. A quick step back to that Nuggets game. I know it's over. Time to move on. I get it. Stop living in the past, Luke. But man, dude, that was just so beautiful. Start to finish, top to bottom, wasn't it? Why gloss over a good thing so quickly? You know, when we look back at that game, you think that was their best regular season win of the year, in your opinion? It's got to be up there, right?
Yeah, it's certainly up there for me. I think when you consider the circumstances, it's at Denver. You don't have Cat. The seeding implications, and they really just dominated them. Certainly has to be right there. I think about the win over Boston early in the season to kind of cement like, oh, this team is really, really good. This is for real. The win over Miami where Cat really got the best of Jimmy Butler. Those two were guarding each other one-on-one, and that fourth quarter comeback is there. I think the Indiana game, the first game without Cat, Ant has 44, the game-winning block. That was huge to kind of send a message like season's not over. We're still going to be here. And then the Clippers won, right? A 44-point swing, go from down 22 to up 22. Ant was incredible in that game. Gobert was awesome until he got hurt right at the end. Yeah. And then that Denver game next week, right, is certainly going to be another one.
Yeah, that could be. Yeah.
Shams Charania reported today that there's some optimism that Karl Anthony Towns could be back, not just for the start of the playoffs, but before the end of the regular season. The Timberwolves said on the day Karl had surgery that you'd be reevaluated in 4 weeks. That 4 week mark is 1 week from today.
Wow.
April 9th. So, who knows? The Timberwolves play the Wizards at home next Tuesday on that April 9th date. And then the next day is that Nuggets back-to-back game. So that would be a hell of a time for Karl to make his kind of re-entry to the lineup, which would be crazy.
And speaking of the Nuggets, last one before we get out of here, we're in this final stretch. It's crunch time now. 7 games left for the Wolves. When you look at the Nuggets and the Thunder's remaining schedules, though, dude, how friggin' tight is this thing, man? How difficult or how easy do both those teams have it down the stretch? And in turn, I guess, what do the Wolves need to do to have a shot, a real shot at this number 1 seed when it's all said and done? Have you looked at either of those team schedules?
Yeah, I certainly have. And so I'm just kind of like updating some numbers here as they're changing a little bit. So Oklahoma City has the toughest schedule of the 3 teams. They have the 9th toughest schedule in the league left over. They still have to play the Celtics tomorrow on the second end of a back-to-back. The Celtics have already clinched the 1 seed, so we'll see if they rest guys, and then they got to play like teams like the Bucks and the Mavs. The Timberwolves have the 11th easiest schedule the rest of the way. They still have to play Denver, Phoenix twice, obviously, and then the Lakers. And then the Denver Nuggets have the 2nd easiest schedule left in the entire league. They only have to play Minnesota and then the Clippers. The Clippers should be an easy win for them. So, yeah, it's really going to come down to potentially, let's say if the Thunder lose tomorrow in Boston, if they still don't have one of SGA or Jalen Williams, neither of whom played tonight, that could be a really tough game for them. Yeah, I think that Denver game next Wednesday night could be for all the marbles potentially in terms of that 1 seed race. And I just don't know that we're going to see any of these teams separate by more than half a game or 1 game. I don't think we're going to see a situation where the 1 seed is the 1 seed by more than 1 game, right? Just with how good these teams have been, really over the course of the last month, 6 weeks, that no team I think has been more than a game and a half out of the 1 seed for the last 4 or 5 or 6 weeks, which has just made it a ton of fun to watch. And I think kind of stressful to scoreboard watch every night, but that's the NBA in March and April.
Roller coaster, man. And as Random Planet just called out as well, Clippers are going to lose tonight. It feels like right now to the Kings. Dude, it wasn't that long ago. This was a 4-man race, man. It was like, is it going to be 1, 2, 3, or 4? And then slowly but surely, these last 3-4 weeks, it has kind of squeezed down to this 3-man race. But yeah, absolute roller coaster on any given night. Wolves bounce back strong versus the Rockets tonight, 113-106. OKC drops 1 to Philly. That was huge. Back-to-back with the Raptors tomorrow night. Tip-off for that one, another 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. As always, Huge shout out to all you guys that joined us on the stream. You guys are the absolute best. And rest assured, we'll be back each and every game, same time, same place right here to break it all down. Quick reminder, got to go check out all of Jack's work on X at JRBorman13, and make sure you check him out and the entire crew on the Minnesota Basketball Party. That's each and every Wednesday. Sam Ekstrom hosting, Gophers legend Ron Johnson, Carol Evans, Reggie Wilson, and don't forget as well, Ben Beacon, always ripping it up over on the Locked On Wolves podcast each and every day as well. All right, that'll do it for us tonight. He's Jack Borman. I'm Luke Inman on Twitter, at Luke_Spinman. Until next time, signing off.